All right, so let's do a quick review that's not really a huge review of the book itself, but this is one of the two books I got sent. Oh, here's the other one. The other one, haven't read this one yet, but I finally finished this. It took me a little bit of yesterday, a little bit of today. Very quick read. It's about 80 pages. I don't want to do a huge review of the book. Maybe I'll do that later, which means maybe at some point, probably not, maybe not, maybe. If you liked, the history stuff that I put into, Guerrero when I originally put that up, I was familiar with the author, John Lauritsen. He did some stuff on HIV and how it's fake and all that back in the 80s. I don't know, maybe. I mean, with the whole corona stuff, it's like, oh, those crazy people who don't think AIDS is real. I don't know, whatever. That's not what we're talking about. So I'm familiar with the author. I'm familiar with the fact that he wrote on these topics. I was not familiar enough with this book. This is a new one. It's interesting. There was nothing all that new in here for me, but it was a great refresher of, oh yeah, I remember reading about these sort of things. The names were familiar, Benedict Freelander, the old Greek stuff, Harmodius, Aristoteton. So there's nothing in here that is really Hirschfeld in the 20s in Germany. Interesting stuff. If you like the history stuff in Guerrero, you're really going to like this. And again, it's very short. That's the other. I wish somebody put together all the same-sex references in, in the Greeks and the Romans, like all of it. And there was like an anthology of all of it, including all the art, including everything. We don't have that and whatever, but so this is definitely not that. It's a short little, sampler pack of it. Very interesting stuff. So let's see here. I did take some notes. So let's see here. Page 60 again. Let's just rush through it again. I'm not trying to do a huge review of it right now. Maybe at some point. In the page 60, he does talk about... Now, this book was written in 1998. All right, so he's talking about... Was it written in 98? Copyright 1998. So we'll say 1998. So this was 20 years ago. And he says that, a lot of the gay stuff, a lot of the activism, you basically, if you were going to do gay activism in the 90s, which is true, you kind of have to be a lefty. You have to accept feminism. I am not finding the exact page here. That's a shame. Right. Oh yeah, gay people became not just a minority, but a constituency with all the political activism. This had one important consequence. Since our allies expect a quid pro quo, participation in the gay liberation movement must be restricted to those individuals willing to support everything else on the roster of approved causes. Thereby, a test of ideological purity is set up, requiring gay liberationists to support all tenets and demands of various and sundry populist and nationalist movements, from the Black Panther Party to the Fat Liberation Front. So, if you're like, oh, all this SJW stuff, it's so new. Not really. This stuff was, this stuff was documented and complained about in 1998. All right, so what am I supposed to... So, so that's, let's see. He talks about, let's see here, 64. Page 64. In recent decades, men's clubs, men's bars, men's colleges, men's singing societies, men's dormitories, men's gymnasia, ... have ceased to exist. YMCAs, for example, are now for both sexes, though YWCAs are still for females. So young men, Christians, or whatever it stood for. But the M stood for YM, men's, and YW, women, right? Rather than acting as dupes for feminism, we ought to unite all men in regaining the freedom of association that is right for all of us. Now, you're not going to hear that anywhere else in the gay world today as, we should just have men-only things. He talks about free speech at the end, 82. I am doing a full review. Well, we'll figure that out. Freedom of speech is under renewed assault. Again, this is 1998, not 2020. Conservatives yelling about it on Twitter. In addition to the traditional blasphemy, obscenity, and indecency laws. Now, he's actually referring to the fact that in the late 90s, you may still have had these laws on the books. Like, I think the sodomy laws were only gotten rid of recently in the U.S., right? Insidious new laws, again, in 1998, insidious new laws have smuggled in censorship under the guise of protecting oppressed groups from defamation. These Orwellian laws include anti-hate and false news laws in Canada, anti-racialist laws in England, and anti-pornography laws in the United States. Some would like to see gay people added to the list of protected groups. Now, this guy himself likes other... So it is kind of refreshing to read this and say, oh, this same bullshit was happening 20 years ago. And it is interesting to read that somebody was seeing through the bullshit of anti-hate laws and even makes up anti-racialist laws. So some of the lefties who will be free speech, they're not going to touch, the anti-race stuff. That's interesting. So yeah, I do like reading it. It's a refresher of the fact that none of this is all that new. That the specific same-sex stuff, the Roman stuff, the Greek stuff he wrote about, even the early 20th century stuff. Yeah, I knew about it. It's interesting. And that kind of brings us to the problem of, he mentioned that, you don't have men's clubs anymore. That's kind of it. There have been plenty of people who wrote about this stuff in the 1800s, 1900s. This guy, me, it's like, there's just really, is there an address I can show up to? And people are on the same page with this stuff or other things. Yeah, that's the big stumbling block there. So yeah, that's kind of it, That's the sort of roadblock and the wall that I hit with the Guerrero thing, which is, this is nice ideas. The gay world, he actually has an interesting definition of gay, and I think, where is that one? Gay footnote, is that 66? He had a definition of gay, because, a lot of the gay guys are in fact effeminate, and that has been the most striking thing with that. And that's the whole thing. That's why I came up. Oh, here we go. So my definition of gay would just be the effeminate gay guys, and let them have it. Fantastic. I think there's plenty of good sciencey evidence that there's a kind of inbuilt effeminacy, kind of hormonal thing maybe in the womb. And I don't think Achilles and Roman emperors and all that kind of fit that, right? In fact, one of the guys that he mentions, Benedict Friedlander, made this point in the 1920s, that he was fighting against, what's-his-face? Friedlander was against Hirschfeld. Hirschfeld was like, oh, these effeminate homosexuals, and oh my God, they're a small little minority, and we should protect them, and blah, blah, blah. And Friedlander in the 1920s was like, no, you look back in the ancient world, these weren't effeminate men and all that. But I would say, okay, fine, the gays can have that label. But this guy, Lauritsen, says, footnote on page number 9, the popular terms gay and straight have some analytical utility when used correctly. A gay man is erotically responsive to other males, whereas a straight man, for whatever reason, is not. Neither definition makes references to females. So basically, in this essay, a bisexual man is also considered gay. So if you have any kind of erotic response to other males, you're gay. That's his definition. That's fine. Again, it's how you define things. It's fine. What was I going off about here? Yeah, so I kind of hit the wall with the whole Guerrero thing that, right, is, okay, so the gay world, not gay world meaning the kind of effeminate, kind of even the LGBT activist-y types that this guy would criticize as well. Okay, so if that's not the right thing for you, and the kind of straight world isn't the right for you, how come there isn't more of a response to this? How come there isn't, like, because again, you look at it and say math, right? It's 300 million America, 330 million or whatever it is. Okay, not everybody, women excluded, most men, but even like 1% of men who just cannot stand either of this, the straight world, the gay world. 1% of that is 1.5 million, somewhere around there, a million. So where's the address I show up at, right? To just kind of get the point that this gay stuff, this straight stuff just doesn't really work out. It's not that interesting, right? So that's been the problem, is these are great ideas. The history is interesting. The stuff behind it's interesting. And then where is this? What's the address, right? Where's the address I show up at? And that's been unfortunately kind of remiss. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been kind of struggling with over the last couple of years since I myself put Guerrero to pen and paper and audio and what else in the internet. And, slowly but surely, I'm kind of starting to talk about what I actually want to talk about. Because again, my whole thing was, maybe you can find like-minded people with this kind of stuff. And to the degree that, again, there's a few people who are reading this, listening to this, fine. But it's just not as popular and as big as one would like. So, I'm just going to have to start talking about what I've wanted to talk about. And, it's somewhat frustrating that it's just not coming out as easily. But again, I'm doing these every day, and that's just what it is. And maybe tomorrow or in the next few days, I might go back out to the lake again. Nice warm lake. Because it's November here, but it's still really warm for a few more days, hopefully. We're still having a relatively warm spell. So I might finish this. This one isn't very long either. It's 50 pages smaller font, but basically it's this. I could read this in an afternoon, to be quite honest. So we'll take a look at it, and that's it. And just one day at a time, I guess. And that's it. So bye-bye.